Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Rose with the Financial Brand. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for this webinar from eGain, the broken bank and credit union sales, how to fix, scale, and transform. Before we begin, just two quick reminders. First, the recording of this webinar will be emailed to you shortly after we've concluded. And second, we will be doing a live Q&A toward the end of the hour, and our speaker welcomes your questions. Please just type those right into your GoToWebinar dashboard. And now it's my pleasure to introduce and pass things along to Evan Siegel, VP Financial Services at AI at eGain.
Thanks, Lee, and thank you everyone for joining today. What we're going to cover is why banks and credit union sales models are broken. I'm going to propose to you a better model. And I think where it'll get really interesting for you all is I'm going to propose sort of a key steps and key technologies that will enable you to get there. Next page, please. So a little bit about myself and how I've come to have these opinions and viewpoints on the sales world in the banking industry. I've spent a total of 20 years working in the banking industry on customer experience, sales, advice, and guidance. I'm currently the Vice President of Financial Services AI at eGain Corporation, and every day I spend time speaking to financial service industry executives about their sales and customer experience issues. And previously, I spent 16 years in customer experience strategy, sales roles at a very large bank. One of the things I did in that time, and one of the things I'm most proud of in my tenure at the bank, was I created a team of financial health bankers. This team really operated in a different way. It gave foundational advice and guidance to customers. And by many measures, it was a huge success. At its peak, we had 200 bankers. We served 75,000 customers. It had, in my division at least, the highest customer satisfaction scores. I would meet with senior executives, and they would all say, this is the way banking should be done. But it inherently had a lot of difficulties. It was expensive, people were delivering it, and there was a compliance risk, again, because people were delivering it. There's always the risk people can go off script. So that's one big experience that sort of has impacted my thinking. The other big experience was I was part of an omni-channel team working to implement a book of business model at this bank. That's where we were assigning bankers a set of customers. In that bank's case, it was affluent customers, and the goal was to reach out on a quarterly basis and give advice and guidance to those customers with the ultimate goal of having a strong relationship with that banker and really winning a share of wallet of that customer. However, that model, in my opinion, failed at that bank. And those lessons learned are also informing my conversation with you today. Next. So as I mentioned, we'll be talking about why advice and guidance is a winning strategy, how and why sales practices are broken today, and then I'll go through in some depth about how to deliver a better model. Next. So I also have, prior to my experience, I also spent 10 years as a strategy consultant. So I always approach these types of topics from a strategy standpoint. And I want to start with a scan of the environment that you all are operating in. And I really see four key new external trends that are really impacting how you should go about sales and guidance with your customers. One of the big trends is that great service now equals digital innovation. You know, everyone's familiar with Erica. That's sort of the flagship of how digital innovation drives service. And it's especially relevant for the digitally native generations, the millennials and Gen Z, who, don't want to deal with humans. They really view the digital as the first place to go. So that's one big trend. Another trend that really matters here is that scale matters. And that's because to deliver those awesome digital innovations, you need to spend a lot of money on technology. Basically, every bank and credit union out there today is competing with JP Morgan Chase, who it is been published that they spend $12 billion a year on IT innovation. And that's why you're seeing this sort of merger, M&A consolidation going on in the banking industry. You've got regional banks combining, which you see here on the page. And there was recently an article in the Wall Street Journal noting that the last year had a record M&A activity. Okay, you're also being buffeted by innovation from fintechs, and that's cherry picking your customers. They're coming up with innovative products and innovative experiences. And then the final key trend that I know is on top of mind, especially of those that are working in the retail channel, is that there is an accelerating decline of branch traffic. And that really matters because that's the traditional sort of main source of sales. It's where most customer sales have occurred. And for those of you in the community banks and credit unions who really anchor a lot of your experiences on the relationship, that's where you have traditionally formed strong relationships with your customers. So next, let's look at the key customer trends. Okay, so really what's happening here, I'm going to go through a lot of data, but the headline really makes the main point here. Financially struggling, increasingly digital customers expect consistent cross-channel guidance. So let me convince you of that. First, is that data point is 67% of Americans are not financially healthy. That statistic comes from the Financial Health Network. It's a nonprofit that's dedicated to improving the financial wellness of Americans. And I could put a bunch of other stats on this. I actually have another deck that has 3 pages of stats that really build a compelling case that Americans' financial wellness is not in great shape. And a very important point to make here is it's not just those living paycheck to paycheck. Obviously, the 67% of Americans, that's the vast majority. And it includes very important segments of your customers, your future affluent customers, the millennials and Gen Z. Okay, next let's move to that chart on the right-hand side of the page. This came, by the way, the 2 charts on this page came from, as I was preparing for this talk, one morning I sat down and just read some of content in the Financial Brand. It's pretty easy to find content, and this just came from that random reading, these 2 charts, on the trends that I'm talking about here. So what we have here is a survey from J.D. Power, and there are 2 key takeaways on that chart. The first one is that banking satisfaction correlates with financial health. So the line chart is the customer satisfaction, and then you have the various tranches. From left is the most financially healthy to the right, where you have people financially vulnerable. And you can see the satisfaction with their bank goes down the less financially healthy they are. The second key point to make is that from 2020 to 21, in general, customer financial wellness has declined. And that's, most experts believe that's primarily due to the pandemic. Okay, so you got your customers are struggling. The second big thing is that they're moving more and more to the digital channel, and they expect, although many of them, 32% as reported by PwC, are digitally native, which means that's the channel they go to first and the channel they strongly prefer to stay in. They also expect consistent omni-channel experiences, and so that's down on the final chart here on the lower right-hand page. This one's a little complicated, so let me take a second to explain it. So this is based on a Harris poll where they asked both customers and financial industry marketers to rate their performance on a scale of 1 to 5 on those 4 key attributes, which are the core customer experience, what customers would care about: that the bank understands them, that they get personalized service and advice, and that it's omni-channel consistency. And what you see is there's a big gap between what the customers score as a 5, that's 47% for customer understanding, and what I got that backwards. The top bar is what the marketers score, how they think their institution delivers. 47% gave themselves a 5, but the customers only give 23% on that attribute. So the gap on this chart is the gap between how the banks and credit unions perceive themselves versus how the customers perceive themselves. So there's really this huge underperformance according to the customers versus how you all perceive yourselves in these 3 key attributes. Okay, so I've covered the environment. I want to now shift to a strategy that will allow you to sort of thrive in this new environment where your customers are struggling, they expect omni-channel experiences, and less of them are going into the branches. So in thinking about a strategy, I really wanted to boil the banking industry down to the most basic value props that you all deliver. And I really see three main value props. And they're on this page. And it's sort of inspired by the Maslow hierarchy of needs, for those of you that took a psychology in high school or college, where you start with foundational stuff and you move up to the more high value stuff once you get there. And so sort of think about that as I walk through this. So at the bottom of the pyramid here, basic value props that banks deliver to customers, it's errorless execution and flawless recovery when there's issues. That's basically all the transacting that you do, and when there's an issue, to resolve those issues. The next is the sort of where a lot of activity has been happening over the last 2 decades. That's the investment on anytime, anywhere, any way banking. That's your sort of your ATM and branch network, your digital channels, your digital capabilities, your know me experiences, and a lot of that really focuses on convenience. And there's been a ton of activity to really increase the banking convenience. The final and the highest level here, where you really help the customers the most, is around goal attainment, helping your customers achieve their financial goals. That's things like, build credit, save more, pay for my kids' college, reduce debt, have a comfortable retirement. And that is where you're going to give the most value to your customers, and where, when I read bank and credit union mission statements and visions, is where a lot of you sort of plant the flag that that's really why you exist. So if you go to the next page, if you kind of think about this framework, you can, in my opinion, there's a big opportunity to go to some white space. So if you look at that sort of most foundational area, errorless execution, that's table stakes. You all do that really well. The anytime, anywhere banking, it's my argument that there's been so much activity and investment there in the last 15 to 20 years that differentiation is difficult. And in fact, you're really getting a diminishing return on your dollars because you're just not providing that much more convenience for the millions of dollars to build out the next great innovation. The big white space is around helping the customers achieve their goals. And in sort of strategy 101, a really great strategy is go to the white space, fill it better than your competitors, and you'll win customers. So let me now tell you why I believe, and the data to support the fact that there's no one really does goal attainment well. Next page. Let me start with a story. So I've been studying the banking space for a long time, and I always like to get out there and experience it myself via a mystery shop. So this is from a recent experience I had, where I walked into a local branch here of a fairly large bank, not a mega bank, more of a sort of a regional player. My situation was I was a customer with $13,000 of credit card debt. I also have, if the banker had asked me, $250,000 of home equity in my home. When I walked into the branch, I was able to meet with the branch manager. He had 8 years of experience, and what I said to him was, "Hey, I've got $13,000 of credit card debt. I'm looking for you to help me figure out what to do with that. I don't like paying so much interest on that high credit card debt." Without missing a beat, never asked me a question, but what he did do is he put in front of me a flyer and pushed a 0% balance rate transfer credit card with a 6-month teaser rate. He then sang its praises, did not bother to mention that credit card interest rate goes to sort of comparable to what I was currently experiencing after the 6-month teaser rate ended. I chatted with him, said I would take the information back, but I wanted to talk to my wife before I made the final decision. He then used his sophisticated CRM system, and I'm being facetious here. He took out literally a scrap of paper. He wrote down my name, phone number, and email, and said he would follow up with me. Of course, I never heard from him again, and as a former sort of sales strategy, that type of experience, knowing it happens in a branch, if I was an executive of that bank, my head would have exploded. So this really kind of just shows what's typically happening in a lot of the branches. And by the way, in my current role, I ask the retail channel executives, a common question I ask them is, "Hey, what would happen if I walked into your branch and said, 'Hey, I've got $13,000 of credit card debt. What should I do next?'" The most common answer I get is they would recommend a specific credit card product. So I think a lot of you know that this is a very common experience in your branches. If you go to the next page, I really want to kind of explain a broader framework that I see happening in your two channels. So in the human channel, what I think is happening is there's basically three models of the customer experience being delivered. The first one is the order taker, where the banker is more than happy to write up the paperwork, take the application for whatever the customer wants. If the customer doesn't know what they want, the banker will eagerly put a matrix or a placemat of the products, the features, those things that the marketing team creates, and they'll let the customer pick it out. Not necessarily a great experience. Another model is the product pusher. Many banks and credit unions have big data generated offers. They have systems that will push those offers out, and the banker out of sort of left field will just recommend a product that's there in the big data. It's not necessarily connected to the customer's situation or the customer's goals. And there's another flavor of the product pusher, which is also very common, and that's the banker who's a hammer and everything's a nail. By that, I mean they feel comfortable selling one or two products. Usually it's a credit card, maybe a bill pay service, kind of the more foundational stuff. And because that's where they feel comfortable, that's all that they recommend to their customers. The third thing I see in the models in the branch channel is some banks do have needs assessment models. They run up to 30 questions. And what they're really doing is they're expecting that banker to be this great processing engine, ask the question, know what the next best question to ask is, take all that data, know when to stop asking questions, and then recommend a product. Based on my experience and the data I've seen, that is extremely hard to do well. And it's only the sliver top performing bankers can do it. And what typically happens is that model devolves into the banker will ask one question because their manager makes it, and then they'll devolve into the product pusher or the order taker. Okay, so that's the human channel. Now let's focus on the digital channel. And actually, this is something that really surprises me, that in 2022, if you look at almost any bank or credit union digital channel, you're going to basically see three things. You're going to see brochureware, so long descriptions of what the products are. If people want to get some advice and guidance, there'll be long articles and a menu of self-service calculators and tools. And basically, the bank or credit union is asking the customer to figure out what they're going to do themselves. Take that example of my mystery shop where I had $13,000 of credit card debt. Most banks or credit unions are going to make that type of a customer go read all the product features and specs and then figure out for themselves what they need to do. And I don't think that's what your customers are telling you they want, when they're financially struggling and they want this sort of personalized advice and guidance. So now let's shift to what I'm recommending as the better model that'll work much more sophisticated and give your customers what they need. But let's acknowledge that delivering advice and guidance to help your customers achieve their financial goals, that's really hard. And to do that consistently at scale across all your channels is also extremely hard. So I am arguing that the secret here is that you need a coherent customer and channel strategy. You need to start there because it's really important that you optimize your expensive and highly effective human channel. That's where traditionally most of the sales happen, and you really want to make sure you're really getting the maximum bang for your buck there. But you also need to design great experiences for all your customers, and so you need to be really thoughtful about what you do in your digital channel. So let me explain the chart here that's on the page. On the left-hand side are the two channels, and then on the bottom, on the x-axis, is a way to think about your customers. I've chosen customer profitability because for most of the banks and credit unions that I talk to, that's how they're segmenting their customers. But you could also look at strategically important segments. You could look at high potential customers, or you could simply say, you know what, we'll put just our affluent customers at the right, which is sort of a proxy for profitability. Okay, and then in each square, is what is the recommended sales and guidance model for that box. So let me start in the lower left-hand corner. There, where you've got your lower profitable customers, what I'm recommending in your digital channel is you come up with a digital-first, fully contained digital strategy. 100% digital. You're providing all the advice and guidance, next best product, next best financial action guidance that customers need in the digital. It's not brochureware, it's needs-based sales and guidance. But if those customers do want human assistance, they can pop up to the human channel. So now I'm in the upper left-hand corner box. But what you would do there is you would provide financial checkups, needs assessments. People could go from the digital. They could in essence pound out to get human support or walk into a branch. But you're really taking that as a transactional support. You'll take them through and give them that sort of questionnaire of what are they up to, what are their financial goals. You will give them the full human support of next best product, but you'll not encourage them to come back. As they need that transactional support, they'll get it. With this model, I will tell you that most will stay in that digital channel, but you do want to have that human option available for those. So now let's move over to the high customer profitability. There, what you're doing, because these are the people you really want to work with them, give them the real white glove treatment and increase your share of wallet with them. For those that prefer the digital channel, they get it, but you also feather in the human touch. And by that, I mean, if they're on the digital channel working with your digital solutions, they may proactively get offered the opportunity to talk to humans, so you're encouraging it, or they may get a banker to follow up with them after the digital experience. You're really swarming them with great service and giving them the human channel option. And then, and this is where it gets very powerful, you're also taking your human channel, primarily your branch bankers, and you're basically encouraging them to build a relationship with your most profitable customers. Some call it a book of business. Some banks and credit unions say, hey, we'll sort of encourage our customers to come in for financial checkups. And we're going to go through and understand what's that customer goal. And we're going to work with that customer over time to achieve that goal by giving them lots of advice and guidance. Okay, so that's sort of the framework of how you can make advice and guidance at scale work for all your customers and deliver a consistent experience. Next, let's look at the technology which makes it possible, because there's really good news here. There have been significant advancements in digital technologies and AI that allow you to have sort of quick to value technologies to deliver this model and really give great financial guidance to your customers. So let me start with, there's a lot on this page, let me kind of break it down. Let's start with the customer need. And what I see here is that there's two types of customer needs, and there are technologies to deliver these two types of customer needs. On the left is foundational guidance and coaching. This is much less sales focused. This is sort of in that financial wellness space where you're taking your customers and you're working with them on things like building credit, finding money, and you're establishing an ongoing digital engagement model. That's what we mean by coaching. And so for that, my company eGain has actually created, in partnership with Green Path Financial Wellness, a leading financial counseling nonprofit, a solution called a virtual financial coach. As I mentioned, it's much less sales focused. It's a digital solution, and there's lots of great use cases for this. So you can offer it to your customers who are new to credit, student cards, secured cards, those types of products, to really build up their credit score and their credit capacity. You can also offer it to customers in sort of a post-credit decline situation. For those millennials that might be trying to buy their first home, it's a great thing to offer them as they get home buyer ready, working with the underbanked or people that need to sort of find money to fund their college savings, etc. So it's really around that sort of foundational guidance. You're in the digital first space. And the really neat thing about this particular solution is because what people need to do to build credit or find money, increase the savings, it's pretty standard. So we've made this a turnkey solution that can be up and running in just a matter of days. Next, let's go to that sort of more sales space. And here we've got two solutions. And by the way, you see the arrows on the page. These solutions all work together. And so if one starts in one and they really should be in the next solution, they can be seamlessly handed off between the two. But the next one is really around, you've got customers who are ready to buy. It's helping them in that ready to buy moment. So let's stay in the digital space with the virtual banker. This is something that can replace all that brochureware that you have out there or complement it. It kind of turns the whole sales model, the digital sales model, on its head, and would be offered to customers when they're on your online pages, for example, looking at your various products. And it would engage them, be offered like a typical chatbot, but it would engage them and go through that needs assessment. Hey, Evan, what type of products are you looking for? What's your financial goals? And go through those questions to make that very important next best product, or in some cases, a next best financial action, because the product is not always the best solution for customers. Then, kind of finishing out on the right-hand side of this page, very similar technology, in fact, exact same technology, exact same AI, just slightly different user interface, is a banker desktop that does the exact same thing. It takes that needs assessment questionnaire and it supports the banker to walk through that. And so it enables now we're sort of in that upper right-hand box of my 2x2, you're really enabling your bankers with the technology to do needs-based selling, to have quarterly financial checkups, to do book of business, where they feel really empowered to know what to ask the question, what questions to ask the customers, and to give that sort of advice and guidance that really will help the bankers. You remember when we started, I mentioned that I worked on this at a mega bank to do a sort of a book of business. And the number one reason that it failed was the bankers did not feel confident after that first conversation that they could continue to deliver value-add advice and guidance to customers after they made their first product recommendation. With an AI technology solution like this, it overcomes that key hurdle. Your bankers know that the technology has their back and can help them deliver that value-add advice and guidance. And this one, by the way, you'll notice the last little piece on the lower right-hand side, because it's based on a proven AI technology, it can be up and running very quickly. The only piece of customization here that's needed is, what are your products? What are the sort of the questions you want to ask, and what's the guidance that drives it? So just a little bit of sort of, if you will, process mapping. So let's go deeper on each solution now and just tell you a little bit more about these and how they work. So we'll start with, on that left-hand side, the virtual financial coach. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how that works and what specifically it is. It has two real areas of guidance, as I previously mentioned. It helps customers and members of the credit unions build credit and find money, reduce their expenses, or save more. We've done, in building this product, there's a partnership of 3 firms that have come together. So for that build credit model, we've partnered with TransUnion, and we use their credit data and credit scores. What eGain brings to the party is our industry-leading AI. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've also partnered with GreenPath. It's a nonprofit financial wellness firm, 60 years of experience, and it's basically their advice that's included and loaded into the virtual financial coach. In essence, you can see a picture of it on the right-hand side there, screenshot. It's like you're chatting with one of their top financial counselors, but it's really a bot. And so in that screenshot, what you see there is one of the most powerful experiences that the coach delivers. Customers can pull their credit score. All they need is to provide the virtual coach their name, address, and last 4 of social. And they not only get access to their credit score, but very important and very powerfully, the virtual coach also analyzes 10 credit attributes that TransUnion provides to us. And you'll see that in the little red exclamation point, we find the element based on that data that is most negatively impacting that credit score. So in this example, the customer has some missed payments, recent missed payments, and then where the coach gets very powerful and helpful to the customer, Coach Leah gives very specific advice on what that customer needs to do to improve their credit score. And it goes sort of to the root cause of the issue. So in this case, where someone may have missed their credit payment, we just don't say pay your bills on time. We'll dig a little deeper. Coach Lee will dig a little deeper. And the most common reason people miss their payments is because they don't have enough money in their account when the bill is due. And so we'll work through that other advice path about finding money and work with the customer on how to build up a little bit of a cash cushion. And so with a digital experience like this, how it helps your sales model is it gives sort of very specific advice to your customers. It increases the capacity of them to have more products because customers with higher credit scores, higher balances could take on more products. And it also gives you a metric, as in their credit score, to help measure progress. For you all, the benefits to you is, although this product does not lead with sales, when there is an opportunity for the customer to benefit in their advice journey in building credit or finding money from a product, the coach will recommend it. A good example there is if the customer's goal is building emergency savings, they don't have a savings account, the coach will recommend that. And we also capture some really good demographic data, and I know our bank CRA departments really love the fact that we capture sort of what zip codes and some customer demographics of the people we're helping. So we're getting, if you go to the next page, we are getting, in addition to lots of benefits from the bank, we're getting really impressive feedback from the users of the virtual financial coach. Some of the data points we're getting, one is we ask the customers on the credit journey at the beginning, tell us about your credit-related stress. They rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. And then once they've completed the journey, after they've gotten their information and their personalized action plan, we ask them again. And we're really proud to report that we're seeing a 35% reduction in the virtual coach's the users' credit-related stress. So they find in that 3 to 5 minute interaction getting coached, that we read that as they're getting enough information to really feel like, I know what I need to do next. We also ask the users to rate the overall experience, and 88% are saying that was a really positive and useful experience. We also ask the users to tell us, is their personalized action plan achievable? And again, we're proud to report that 85% of the folks report that it is. And we think there's 2 reasons for that. One, we make the plan very bite-sized. There's no more than 3 action steps they need to have. It's very personalized. Remember from that data from the Harris poll that was in the chart early, people want that personalized actions and guidance. It's exactly to their situation. And the third thing is we've baked in a little bit of behavioral science here. Throughout this coaching journey, the customers sort of answer some questions and they help inform their overall plan. And there's a behavioral science principle called active choice, where when you sort of have a input into your action, you're more likely to achieve it. And then finally, we have one path on the building credit where people will go and they'll review their credit report. The coach kind of walks them through how to review their overall credit report. And we've learned that 50% of the people that take that path actually find an error in their report, and then the coach helps them dispute that error. And there's no faster way to improve your credit score than to find an error and fix it. So we're seeing real value delivered in the first couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, first interaction with the coach, and we're really proud of that. Next page. Next, let's shift to that sort of virtual banker and banker desktop solution where you're really starting to get into that needs-based selling space. So remember, we talked about what's the current state of affairs, that in the digital channel today, it's really just brochureware. And here I've got on the page sort of an example where, this is, by the way, these are easy to find. This is from one large bank where they've got the classic, you can click on a tile, learn more about the product. I've shown here what happens when you click on the mortgage tile, some rates. And so you can take, with a digital banker, you can take that experience and go from that brochureware experience to adding an option of offering your customers the virtual banker, who will go through and have that needs assessment questionnaire. It's a guided conversation. The AI will, based on your answers, we can integrate with the CRM system, pull information out if the customer is authenticated. If not, we can ask the customer all the questions we need. And then kind of based on anywhere from 5 to upwards of 20 questions, depending on sort of how much we need to ask, make those very important recommendations to the customer. So it really transforms the whole digital sales experience. Next, let's go to the human channel. Next page. Again, it's the same core technology, but you can use it with a different UI to go from that simple product push or order taker example to, again, a very rich needs assessment model where the banker's being walked through. You can see some of the tiles that the banker would see where they get specific questions. There are solutions that are popping up, and they have an example of all the questions that they've asked. And, we work with our clients to customize what exactly is the framework and the questions the customers want. Common journeys are, credit, what's the best credit solution for me? What's my financial goal, and what are the next steps I need to achieve that goal? So there's just sort of an infinite number of needs assessment and journeys we can build out that our AI technology can walk your banker through. If you go to the next page is a full view of what that banker is seeing when they're working with their customer. This is an actual screenshot of that technology. And again, this is so powerful because it overcomes that limitation I saw when I was working at my bank to implement a book of business model or a model where the bankers would do quarterly financial checks. The bankers didn't feel that they could cover a wide array of topics. But here, you can see what the banker has on the leftmost screen is the next best question. And that's based on the previous answers and what information it pulls from the CRM system. At every step, there's also guidance, an outline, a script of guidance of what the banker can give, and it's contextual based on what we know about the customer at that time. You can also see on the upper right-hand side is a set of possible solutions for that customer, color-coded by the fit for those, and that's dynamic. It changes as we learn more about the customer. We get more answers that will change, and it's dynamically presented. And then finally, on the lower right-hand corner is a view of the questions that have previously been answered and information we've pulled from the CRM system. And this is where the AI technology gets very powerful, is the banker can go through and change any one of those questions, the answers to those questions, if the customer changed their opinion. And because this is something called case-based reasoning, it will instantly recalculate the recommendations. It's much more than, I think some people look at this and they say, oh, that's just if-then logic that's being used. In fact, it's a very powerful case-based reasoning. And so if you change any one answer, you don't need to go through and re-ask all the questions. It'll instantly recalculate all the information available. So that allows for some dynamic advice and guidance to be delivered by the banker to the customer. So what kind of results are we seeing when we deliver these types of solutions at our clients? And just a little bit more about my company, eGain. So we're a 20-year-old publicly traded company. We have 170 global clients, and we've implemented solutions like these in many industries. Financial services is our biggest vertical. And when we implement solutions like these, our clients see the types of results that you see on this page. So, increases in sales. And the driver of that, as you can well imagine, is that all your bankers are starting to perform like the top ones. They're executing the model the way it should be executed. We also see big increases in Net Promoter Score. And the reason for that is because your bankers are quickly giving the advice and guidance and following the policies and procedures that your customers have come to expect, that advice and guidance the customers have come to expect, and they do it in a very timely fashion. So that's the driver of those Net Promoter Scores. And then the finance department really likes these types of solutions because there's a lot of cost savings associated with it. There's reductions in training, there's reductions in time to competency, because a lot of the guidance that the bankers need, as you saw on that previous screen, is sort of spoon-fed to them. It's a much more efficient way to deliver seamless advice and guidance and execution, as opposed to spending lots and lots of time in that training module where I have a friend who runs a training company. He says, look, in the training world, you spend time, a third of the people get it well, a third of the people kinda, and a third of the people it kind of goes over their head. And so you solve for that problem by spoon feeding that process guidance step by step. And then, of course, this is really important point too. In the sales model where you're having all of your questions that were asked of the customer, their answers, and any data you pulled that lead to product recommendations, you basically have a full audit trail of why products are recommended to customers, and that'll get your compliance team to love this type of a model and this type of solution. Next page. So one of the questions we often get is, sounds great, but is your technology as good as it says it is, as good as you say it is? And so what we've done it's a unique offer, and I'd love to engage any of you on this call in, is something we call our no commitment trial, innovation in 30 days, where we are willing to let you experience either the virtual financial coach or our virtual banker/banker desktop for 30 days. No cost, no obligation. We work with you for a couple of weeks, just find out the exact use case you want to have. We'll guide you through that process, and then we will, expose it to your customers, to your bankers, however you want, and then you can actually experience it for yourself for 30 days and get a sense of how does the technology actually work, and dispel any of those concerns that you have on whether or not it delivers like we say it will. So it's a very interesting offer. And at the end, I'll give you my email. If any of you want to learn more, hear more about this offer, you can contact me. So let me just tell you, today so far I focused on the sales and guidance use cases, but our technology does support a lot more. As I mentioned, we're a global company, and what we do is our core business is we provide digital engagement platform. And the real key thing is it's a platform that can grow as your needs expand. And so in the middle of this page, the way we think about our product is we provide a number of key hubs. So we have a knowledge hub, which basically is your policies, procedures, your guidance and processes, one source of truth that then can be expanded out through our messaging hub. And when we say messaging hub, look at all the elements on the outer side of that half circle. Those are all the channels, the messaging channels that we enable with that sort of consistent and standard guidance. And then the third hub that we have is an analytics hub, important sort of full transparency and reporting and analytics around what's happening in all these channels as customers move across the channels, full visibility into that. And then one more piece that's important is we have out-of-the-box APIs with some of the leading CRM systems and telephone technology providers that make the technology very quick to scale and quick to perform. If you go to the next page, so it's a platform that you can use to expand across all these digital capabilities, and people like Gartner and Forrester who look at providers in this space have consistently rated us as a #1 digital engagement solution. So it's sort of a proven source of information. So thank you for listening. I really enjoy talking about sales models and the customer segmentation and the channel segmentation and the technology to support it. And if any of you would love to continue the conversation, here's the information on how to contact me. Or if you just want to learn more, you should just go to the eGain website, eGain.com. You can search on our overall capabilities or learn more about these particular solutions. And with that, I will take questions.
Thank you, Evan. Yes, we do have a few here. The first is the sales model that you are recommending would have to be approved by my bank's compliance department. What type of feedback are you seeing from compliance teams?
It's interesting because if that question gets asked, because when I was at my big bank, sales was, I was the best friends with the compliance team. So I understand where that question's coming from. Well, first of all, let's talk about on the virtual coach piece. All of that has been vetted by our partner GreenPath. They have a compliance team as well because they have a couple hundred financial counselors. And so since their team wrote all that guidance, It's all been vetted by their folks. And so we found that when people do look at it, there's really nothing in there that's controversial. And I might add, there's something really valuable that's added from the GreenPath team, and that is that they've learned that advice and guidance, when you're coaching people, it needs to be highly empathetic. And so they've also baked a lot of that in as sort of a bonus. As far as the banker desktop or the virtual banker, that sort of needs-based selling, as I mentioned earlier, the compliance teams are the big fans of this because, you know, at least in my bank, we didn't really know what was going on in the branch channel. In that mystery shop that I talked about earlier, you know, that management team had no idea what the conversation was there. And so the compliance teams just love the fact that you can see what happened, what questions were asked, what answers were given, and what products were recommended. We also do work closely with the compliance teams if there's some customization around what questions are being asked, to make sure that it's all consistent, and it can all be changed relatively quickly if any of the guidance from the compliance teams change. So in general, we work closely when implementing these with the compliance team, and they tend to be big fans.
Great, thank you. And what are the most common ways you're seeing firms use the virtual financial coach?
Okay, so that's a good question. It's only limited by the imagination of our partners. We're live in a couple dozen firms right now, and there's a wide range of use cases. The most common one and the most visible one is it's on all the product pages, particularly the credit product pages. So your mortgage, your credit card, and it's offered as a way for people that is an option for those that may not quite be ready to pull the trigger. They want to kind of make sure that their house is in order, as much as order as possible. Also, we have my personal favorite is a lot of them use it on the credit decline experience. I've seen net promoter scores around the credit decline experience being the most negative of any experience at the retail bank. And so it can be offered as part of that communication. That's really it's not now, but we can work with you to build your credit score up. Another one is some of the firms we work with email out to all their customers that they have this new service, the virtual coach. It's a great brand building opportunity to say like, hey, we really do have options to work with you and improve your financial wellness, which backs up the mission statement of many of our clients. And there's also clever solutions like one firm we're working with has sent email and SMS messages to those customers who are just outside the pre-qualified credit range. So they're just a little shy of being really strong credit opportunities. And then the coach works with them to improve their credit score and create new lendable customers. And then lastly, we had one other firm put some posters about the coach with some QR codes in the branches to get people in the branch experience to engage with the virtual coach.
Thanks, Evan. And speaking of virtual coaches, the next is regarding to that. Would the credit union be given this information around each engagement for human follow-up?
So it gets to around, that's really kind of, it's a good question. It's getting around to the reporting. And so we, at this point, provide full journey analytics. So we'll tell the clients of the virtual coach, how many people have engaged, what paths they've gone down, where they've fallen out. We'll show them if they take advantage of the TransUnion credit score. We'll show them what's the breakout in mass of the people that have used the virtual coach, what's their credit score, how that credit score changes over time as they revisit the coach. We, however, do not give, at this point, individual data. The coach actually says that, everything you tell me is between me and you, confidential, because we want to really help the customers. So we'll give you sort of aggregate data, but not individual data. However, as I mentioned earlier, the coach does do some targeted sort of cross-sell when it makes sense and it's consistent with the advice. So the example I gave earlier was if the coach is working with a member or a customer on finding extra savings for an emergency savings account, the coach might offer see if the customer has a savings account with that bank or credit union, because you need to have the money sort of sequestered off. So coach itself will make follow up. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, for those that need extra help, if you remember, we talk about it's digital first, but you can have that human help. There's two options our clients use to have that extra help with the virtual coach. One is included in the turnkey solution. GreenPath financial counselors are offered as an option for people to get additional guidance, or if the bank or credit union wants to have that customer who needs the extra help, we can also recommend them to their bankers to give that additional financial guidance. But it's the customer's option of whether or not to pull the trigger there.
Got it. Moving along, I like your recommended sales model. However, my bank does not currently do financial checkups or asks needs assessment questions. Sorry. How do we know what questions to load into your tool?
That's a great question. So a couple of things. So we work, my team, myself and a team of ex-bankers. We have 50 years of bank and credit union sales experience, so we can work with you. And then the tool, the technology is very powerful. So once we get in the first set of needs assessment or financial checkup questions, we can do what marketing folks really love. We can start to A/B test. We can have one branch do one set of questions, and we can tweak it a little bit and have another branch do another set of questions. We can analyze the data and see, which ones are most engaging, which ones lead to the most sales. And over time, we can work with you to really fine tune your financial checkup model and get to one that is optimized for the best customer experience and the most effective sales. So we can get you there to the starting point and then use A/B tests to really come up with a really fine-tuned sales model.
Perfect. And one of our listeners wants to know how it works if they are already partnered with GreenPath.
First of all, we love that. They should just contact their GreenPath rep, and basically we work through the pricing with them, and there's minimal paperwork, and we can get you up and running in just a couple of days. It's indifferent whether you work with GreenPath or not. You don't need to be a customer of GreenPath to use the virtual coach. If you are, I just think it means you know the quality of the organization and the quality guidance. Either way, we can get you up and running in just a matter of days. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, sounds easy enough. And I think this will be our last question today, Evan. What type of reporting is included in the solutions you described?
Yep, so I alluded to this in one of my other answers, but I'll go through it again. So there's a lot. There's a lot that's in there. We give you full journey analytics. You get a breakout of the user score, the credit attributes. We ask the Net Promoter Score. You'll get that for your individual customers. For the banker and desktop solution, the virtual banker solution, we'll give you sort of a summary of what are the financial goals of your customers. Where else do they have banking relationships? That's really important. Most needs assessment questions will go through where else do you have financial relationships and balances. So that's great intelligence for your marketing teams to know, like, where else do our customers have accounts and relationships and balances. We'll also give you usage data for the bankers. It's a great way to see who's actually using the tool. The branch manager will get that, as well as the overall sales ops person. How many of these needs assessments are being done per day? How far are they going through? How many customers are having multiple? Because if you're doing a book of business model, you hope that they're doing quarterly check-ins. We'll show you the sales results, progress versus goal. It's really a rich set of customer and banker analytics that come with the digital banker and desktop solutions.
Great. And I know you already had mentioned how to get in touch with you, but before we close out, I just wanted to bring it back to you to see if, there we go, there's your contact information. But if you had any closing remarks for everyone.
Yeah, so, as I said, I've spent 20 years thinking about this. If you just want to talk to me about the sales model, we don't have to talk about the technology. I'd love to sort of get out in the field and hear what all you are thinking about as far as how to give advice and guidance at scale to your customers, how to improve sales effectiveness, and how to improve financial wellness. So I really encourage you, any questions you want to just continue the conversation, please reach out to me. And again, thanks for joining today. I hope you found this valuable and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Evan. And of course, thank you to eGain for our webinar today. And a quick reminder to our listeners before we go, you will receive an email shortly with an on-demand link. So feel free to push that along to your teams. Thanks for joining us and have a wonderful afternoon.